Master's fees have been amended, and there are new proposed changes in terms of estate duty and donations tax. And in this video, we are going to look at what that is and how to apply them through a number of examples. So my name is Francois du Toit. I'm a non-practicing certified financial planner professional, and I am a registered tax practitioner. It is my privilege to take you through the details, and without further ado, let's see what these changes are. Now, first of all, let's start with the master's fees. The changes have been effected through an amendment to the Administration of Deceased Estates Act. It was already published in the Government Gazette back in November 2017. Now, what are the changes? Well, the master's fees have in fact been increased. Now, as far as I know, that fee has been 600 Rand in the past since the 1980s. So a change have really been overdue. If you just think about things like inflation over the years, obviously that 600 Rand isn't worth much anymore today. So a change was inevitable. Now, what were the changes? Well, first of all, if the estate value is between 250,000 and 400,000, when we talk about the estate value, I'm talking about the gross value. In other words, the property and deemed property of the estate before any deductions or any abatements or anything like that. If that value is between 250 and 400,000, the fee is, believe it or not, still 600 Rand. So no real change in terms of that. But when we come to estates that are larger than 400,000, this is where the changes have now really been made. So first of all, the 600 Rand that we had in the previous bracket between 250 and 400, that will be there. And then for the amount above 400,000, for every complete 100,000 Rand after 400,000, there will be an additional 200 Rand. So for each complete 100,000 after that, 200 Rand payable to the master. Now, there's also a maximum fee that has been implemented, and that maximum fee is 7,000 Rand. So if you do the calculations, you will find that it means that any gross estate value in excess of 3.6 million will in fact only pay the maximum fee of 7,000 Rand. Now you will note that there is no mention about estates smaller than 250,000, and that is because there are no master's fees payable for those estates. So that is basically the main change that has taken place, and we're going to be looking at a number of examples to just make sure that you are comfortable with how to calculate the new master's fee, and then to see what the impact will be on the estate itself. But one thing that we need to talk about first before we go there is, what about joint estates? If we've got a joint estate. Now, when we deal with joint estates, the master's fees will be calculated on the joint assets. So, in other words, on the total assets for both spouses. And it will work on the gross estate value of the joint estate and not of the deceased person. So, very important for that. And I'm also going to be doing a specific example to demonstrate that. Then I guess the last question is, when is the change effective? Well, it is already effective as of the date of recording of this video. It's been effective now since the 1st of January 2018. And what that means is that people passing away after the 1st of January 2018 will be subject to pay the new master's fees, and people who passed away before the 1st of January will still only pay the 600 Rand as it previously was before the change became effective. So very easy. On that note, let's look at some examples to drive the points home and to make sure that you are comfortable with how to calculate the master's fees going forward. In example 1, very simple. It's an estate smaller than 250,000. So Susan passed away. She was not married. The gross value of her estate on the date of death was 200,000. So we already know what that is. It means that it's less than 250,000, and therefore no master's fees will be payable in this instance. Easy to understand. It's clear. Nothing to really consider here. In the second example, we have, again, Susan that passes away, but now she's married in community of property. Now, Susan's estate, you'll see here, is only 200,000. So that means that that is below the 250,000 where which means that master's fees are not payable. But important here, she's married in community of property, and her husband also has assets of 150,000. So what we need to do in this case is to add everything together, because remember, we need the joint assets, the total joint assets, the total gross value of the joint estate. And in this case, that now is 350,000. That means it puts it in the middle between, well, not, doesn't matter in the middle, but it's between 250 and 400,000. And therefore, the master's fees payable in this specific case will be 600 Rand. Now, just again to highlight the point here is that if on the joint estate the master's fees were not calculated on the total joint estate, then no master's fees would have been payable, because in this example Susan's gross estate is less than 250,000. But because we needed to add everything together, that's the way it works. Master's fees of 600 Rand will be payable. Example number 3, Susan passed away. She was married out of community of property, and the gross value of her estate on date of death was 1.565 million Rand. So we already have the gross value of the estate. We now know that it is more than 400,000, and therefore the new way of calculating, or there will be additional master's fees payable in line with the new with the new changes. And let's have a look at how we will now calculate this. So first of all, remember that we need to calculate 200 Rand, or add 200 Rand for each complete 100,000 Rand after 400,000. So for us to determine, first of all, what is that difference between the gross value and 400,000? So that is quite easy. You'll take the 1565 less the 400,000, and that gives us 1.165 million. So very easy. Then to determine how many complete 100,000s we've got, what we will do is just simply take the answer that we calculated in step 2, the 1.165, you'll divide it by 100,000, and in this case you'll get 11.65. But what I'm interested in is only the bit before the decimal, because that's a whole number. So that means there are 11 complete 100,000s in this particular case, and therefore we ignore the decimals after this and we just work with the 11. Then what we do is we take 200 Rand and we multiply it by that 11, and then remember we need to add the 600 Rand. That 600 Rand is for the portion of the gross estate that falls between 250 and 400,000, and that then gives us a total of 2,800 Rand. Then what we need to do as well is to check it against the limit of 7,000. It's obviously less than 7,000, and therefore the final master's fees payable will be the 2,800 Rand, and therefore we have that. So quite happy with that. Then let's do a fourth example, just to make sure that we've got this properly down. So poor Susan passing away again. She was married out of community of property. The gross value of her estate on date of death now is 4.2 million. So let's take that. It's more than 400,000. So let's calculate the new fee payable. Again, we want to calculate how many complete 100,000s there are after 400,000, and then add 200 Rand for each complete 100,000 to the master's fee. So again, we'll do exactly the same thing. We'll take the 4.2, which is the gross value, less the 400,000, because I only want to know what is the portion above 400,000. So that gives us 3.8 million. Then we take the 3.8 million, we divide it by 100,000, and that gives us a whole number already of 38. So no decimal, so we don't need to worry. So we're just going to be working with the 38. You take the 200 Rand, multiply it then by the answer that you got in the previous step, which is 38, and then remember, once you've done that calculation, to add the 600, and that then gives us 8,200. But now we need to check it against the limit, which is the maximum of 7,000. Obviously the 8,200 is in excess of 7,000, and therefore the master's fee will be limited to 7,000, which is in line with what we said. If the gross value of the estate is in excess of 3.6 million, then only 7,000 will be payable. All right, so those are the examples. I hope that you found a lot of value in that, and that you are clear on how to calculate the different master's fees and in line with the new amendments to the Administration of Deceased Estates Act. Next up, we talk about the proposed changes to the estate duty and donations tax. That was done in the budget speech that was held on the 21st of February 2018. And what are the changes? So what really happened is that an additional increase rate has been added, almost like a new bracket has been added for both estate duty and for donations tax. So let's have a look at the detail around that. First of all, when it comes to estate duty for net estates above 30 million, there will be an additional 25%, not an additional, but the rate will increase rather from 20% to 25% on the amount that is above 30 million. And I'm going to do an example just now to demonstrate how that calculation will work. Then on donations, very similar. Remember, we're not talking about donations here to public benefit organizations. We are talking about donations to third parties. So donations to public benefit organizations, donations to spouses, they are exempt from donations tax. But any donation to a third party, then children, a trust, a company, someone else, etc., that is what we're talking about here. And if that donation is above 30 million for the year, again, 25% will be payable on the amount above 30 million. So for both the estate duty, that will be payable at 20% up to 30 million and then 25% thereafter. And the same with donations. The first 30 million will be payable at 20% and thereafter at 25%. Let's have a look at the example. So we'll first have a look at the estate duty example. Here, poor Susan, again, poor woman, the fifth time in this video, she passes away. She was married out of community of property, and the net value of her estate is 40 million. Now, what is the net value? If we talk about net value of estate, net value of estate is the value from when after you've done all your deductions, but before applying the 4A abatement, that 3.5 million abatement that you get that you can use in the event of death. So we are going to be looking at that. So first of all, there's the net value of the estate is 40 million, less the 4A abatement of 3.5 million. Then it means that the dutiable estate is 36.5 million. So now we need to calculate the estate duty that is payable. And what we'll do is we will first have to look at the amount above 30 million. So that we will do first. So we'll take the 36.5 million less the 30 million limit, and then that amount times 25% gives us 1.625 million. So that is now step one. Then step two will be the first 30 million will be at 20%. You do exactly the same calculation, you'll get 6 million. And then what we need to do is we need to add these two amounts together to get the total estate duty payable, and we do that, and that is then 7.625 million payable in the event of Susan's death for a net value of estate of 40 million. All right, so that is the estate duty calculation. The example for donations tax is very similar, but luckily this time Susan made it. I'm so happy for her. She now made a donation to her children of 40 million. And let's have a look at the calculation. So the donation amount is 40 million less the annual exemption. Remember, she's got that 100,000 annual exemption that she can use. So that means that 39.9 million is taxable. We again now calculate the donations tax in a two-step process like we did for estate duty as well. So now we've got the 39.9 million. We deduct the 30 million limit. That answer we multiply by 25% and you get a value of 2.47 million. Then the next step is to calculate the 20% on the 30 million, the first 30 million, and that gives us 6 million. And again, we will add them together to have the total donations tax payable of 8.475 million. All right, so those are the changes. These are proposed changes. They haven't been enacted yet, but they will be effective from the 1st of March 2018 if nothing changes. So anybody passing away after the 1st of March 2018 will be subject to the new way of calculating estate duty and donations tax, if that is something that is applicable to a specific person. Thank you very much for joining us. We trust that you found a lot of value in this video, and we'll see you soon.